Hey, I'd like to welcome you all to our Q&A session post our first Becker Vineyards virtual tasting. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry that I was unable to get to all of the questions tonight's video. However, I wanted to address a few. The first one from Jim Riggs. This is a very good wine. I tasted an earlier vintage of Becker Vineyards Reserve, and it had a strong apricot taste. Why do different vintages have different flavors? Very good question, Jim. One of the reasons, the maturity of the grapevine. Each year, as the grape gets older, it also expresses a different flavor. Now, there are a set of flavors that are common to Viognier regardless of where they're grown. Apricot, as you expressed in your question, apple, even a light lingonberry or linden flower, some of these subtle flavors that come out in the grape depending on where they're grown, the season, i.e. warm summer, cool summer, or the yeast that we use in fermentation. Those can also affect the expression of those flavors. Okay, next question. Marilyn J. Agee. I apologize if I've mispronounced your name, Marilyn, but you had an excellent question. Why do you use a straw? I missed the very beginning. We don't use straws ordinarily, Marilyn. However, our boss, the owner, Dr. Becker, decided it would be funny to use a straw. And as we all know, nothing's funnier than a doctor. So the straw was done for comedic relief. It was funny, and he was also trying to trip me up, which he did quite well. Anyway, you can use a straw. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but please use a stainless steel straw instead of a plastic one. Okay, third question is from Larissa. Larissa, I'm not going to attempt your last name, and I apologize. The question is, what do you do with the barrels after you're done aging the wine? It's a great question. We like to reuse those barrels from 4 to 7 years, depending on how long we age the wine and how many different vintages we'll put in that particular barrel. But when we are done, when that barrel has reached its full lifespan, we do recycle them. One of the recycling options that we have available to us is with breweries here in Texas. Now, I'm not going to name the brewery, but there's a huge project coming open this early summer that's in conjunction with a major brewery here in Texas and Becker Wine Barrels, and we're kind of excited about it, so stay tuned for that. 2, we do take the staves out of the barrels and sell them individually, or we sell the barrels whole to the general public. If you're interested in having a barrel to decorate your back patio or put around your pool or in the make a table out of it in your home bar, and come see us, and after your tasting, we'll be happy to sell you one of our used barrels. Okay, the next question is from Anita Engel. Did Dr. Becker just mention the technique in barreling could involve both steel and barrels in a blend? Yes, we actually did discuss that. So the difference between steel, when I say stainless steel, I'm generally referring to the tanks that we use for both fermentation and aging. We have a variety of tank sizes. If you come down to the winery, have a tasting and do a free tour, then you'll see the 3 tank rooms that we have. We have a variety of sizes of tanks running from 400 gallons to 10,000 gallons, depending on what we need to do. The barrel program is separate on each varietal, depending on what I want to age in barrel that particular year. So yes, we do use a variety of both barrel and stainless steel aged wines. Okay, the next question is from Leslie Stork. How long can you hold this wine? If I pick it up, it weighs about 1.5 pounds. I'm pretty sure I could hold it for at least 3 or 4 hours. But since you're probably talking about how long can you store the wine, and forgive me being a smart aleck, Leslie, that's an excellent question. White wines generally can age as long as red wines if it's the right varietal and made correctly and stored under the correct conditions. One of the things that we like to do with both our Viognier and Chardonnay is to lay those bottles down for 3 or 4 years. So you're more than welcome to store that bottle of Viognier for several years and come back to it. It should be just as good as the day you opened it when it was brand new. Okay, next question. Trish Williams Fullerton. What yeast do you prefer? Actually, Trish, that's awesome. We do use several different yeasts at the winery. One of my favorite yeasts is Harold. I named him. I discovered that yeast about 18 years ago. I had it isolated and we cultivated it, and I keep 4 samples in my freezer at home, and I'll use it kind of on the slide when my assistant winemaker isn't looking, and I'll throw it into a tank and I won't tell her. And then she comes into the winery asking why that wine suddenly started fermenting. It's a really fun game we like to play. It's called How to Frustrate the Best Person in the Winery, which is my assistant winemaker, Rachel. We also use several other yeasts. One of them, they don't have fun names. They're usually referred to as numbers. RX16 or X5 or X11. Those are different isolates from different parts of the world. We will cultivate those yeasts in the lab, and then we will introduce them to the wines. And several of our wines we do an all-natural fermentation with as well. And then we will take that wine and recombine it with like wines like a Cabernet done with a natural yeast and a Cabernet done with cultivated yeast, and put them back together during blending trials when we're making the final blend. Hey, question from Veronica Lake. See, Erica, I know who you are. If you could sit and share a glass with anyone, who would it be? That's an easy question to answer, Erica. It would be my wife, Jody. Okay, the last question is actually a pair of questions. The first one, part A, if you will, is from Matt McDaniel, and the second part is from Esther Garcia. Matt asks, what is the optimal temperature to serve this wine? And Esther asks, how long would you want this Viognier to breathe? They kind of go together like peas in a pod. The optimal temperature to serve this wine, as we discussed on the broadcast, we briefly hit that. Doc's preference is in the upper 40s. My preference is in the low 50s. Doesn't sound like a huge variance, but it really is. I prefer white wine to be cool but not cold, and I like it to breathe from there. So one of the things I like to do is to take that bottle of wine, chill it in a refrigerator for a few hours, and then take it out about an hour before service, and then pour the glasses about 15 to 20 minutes before we actually consume. I think that gives you the optimal idea of what that wine is capable of doing. And Esther asks, how long would you want this Viognier to breathe? Well, 15 to 30 minutes if it's under 3 years, an hour to 2 hours if it's over 3 years old. And by age, I'm talking about the vintage printed on the label. Like here it says 2017, it's now 2020, so you would want to decant this wine for a couple of hours before serving. That will really allow that wine to come to fruition. Okay guys, I want to thank you for all those wonderful questions. Thank you for putting up with both Dr. Becker and myself on the podcast, and we hope to see you again on Wednesday.